I'm here today with the very talented Georgia Peppe, and she gave a wonderful submission this year called Bedheads to the festival. So I wanted to bring her on and speak about it with you all and get to know her. She is a great up-and-coming director, and I'm sure we'll be hearing her name out there in the press and on the internet and everything. She's just very talented, so she deserves her kudos and her path made for her. So how are you today, Georgia?
I'm good. I've been super excited to be able to share Bedheads and its first, basically my first submission to the festival circuit, which has been a great learning curve, and it's been awesome to meet a bunch of people either behind the festivals themselves or present at the festivals with submissions as well, so other filmmakers. It's a really neat access point into that community around that, because it can be hard to break into that without any sort of place to start and jump off from.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, I think that's so important. Like, a lot of people are just like, oh, I just want to do it so I could get award winner next to my name, which I think is great. But I also think, like, you're meeting future collaborators.
Absolutely. And also filmmakers that might have a longer experience and journey within that kind of artistic cycle, and especially being at the start of my career, there's a lot of questions about where to go from here, or the many options of paths you can take to go in different directions, and everybody has a different take on that or advice to give. And I think it's just a really useful opportunity to hear people speak about what they've been doing and where they started and where they ended up. So it's a really valuable opportunity for that as well.
Fantastic. Would you like to give any specific, your film screened at our Pride event, Pride Edition day, and would you like to give any specific feedback that you got to your film that you felt was valuable, or something new about your film that you hadn't even considered before, that somebody else's perspective brought to you? Just anything like that would be great.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting to see all 5 of them together in one sitting, which was how I intended to share them with audiences as an anthology. But because they are sort of 5 discrete vignettes, there's no overlap in character or time or place. It really is sort of the central motif of the conversation in bed is the singular unifying factor between the 5 pieces. I think it was interesting being able to be in the room with people watching it, not only as I experienced watching the whole thing, which I had done once before on a big screen, but obviously every time is different, and also an opportunity and privilege to kind of watch the thing as a whole, but also paying attention to the audience and seeing, in what places maybe it felt like interest was waning, or what places they were getting laughs, what was getting murmurs, or kind of being able to hear that kind of conscious collective working and viewing the material as such a symbiotic dynamic happening there in the viewing space. So it was a great opportunity to have that space and have also fellow filmmakers in that space with me, because they themselves are so well positioned to give that sort of feedback. I think also there were especially the people, sorry, the lamp just fell over. But especially I forget the name of I think it was the sibling rule.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yeah, I forget the individuals, the cinematographer and the writer were there. And they were super, I spoke to them a little bit before and after. And I'm pretty sure that one won one of the overarching awards.
Yes.
So it was really just an awesome chance to get to talk to them about that process. And, you know, they definitely are more seasoned filmmakers than myself, but having, you know, their thoughts about casting and asking me, you know, how I found my actors and, you know, the different dynamics that kind of played out on screen, that, you know, it's interesting because even when you're there on the day on set, you can't anticipate really how that's going to read on camera all the time, or at least I'm sure you can if you're a professional, but working with the limited budget and days that we had, it was sort of crazy to see how it really was a day of alchemy that happened between the actors, or didn't happen. But also then how much that we talked a lot about, like how much editing can just completely manipulate a performance. And so I think, yeah, just tying it all back to being able to have that sounding board of other filmmakers, you know, with feedback about the performances and tips on sourcing talent, but also just paying attention to them and their experience of watching the film and hearing where they laughed, where they didn't. That was definitely just an invaluable experience.
Fantastic. Yes, that's Mary Sangiovanni and Paul Falcone were the team behind Sibling. Yes.
Yeah, that's
yeah, no, it was great. The show of support. I felt such a connection to the Pride community, because it was just like beautiful to see the show of support that, you know, that was given that day. And, you know, and just everybody putting just so much love out there. It sounds sort of cliche, but it's really not. It's kind of the thing where you have to experience it to believe it, I think. You don't really fully comprehend, but it's just lovely to see such solidarity, you know, turn up. I just thought it was beautiful. It was one of my best experiences throughout this whole festival. I really, really was just moved by it.
Yeah, it felt like a very appropriate way to celebrate the Pride weekend.
Yeah. No, beautiful. Yeah, no. And again, I so appreciate you making the journey from LA to come, you know, and I'm glad you found the value there and were able to make these connections. I wanted to also tap in because I thought your stills that you offered on your film freeway page were great. And it showed you had some serious, like, you know, you're saying it's low or no budget, but you had some serious camera happening.
Oh, yeah.
There.
Definitely. Yeah.
So, yeah, if you want to talk about that, how you got it, why you chose it, like, you know, this is a little section for all the techies to go, yeah, I want to hear about that.
Yeah, definitely. So I was very fortunate. So didn't have any budget, but I worked, which you know, my biggest regret around that is not being able to pay the talent that I used. And also, I was really the main crew person on this, besides my dear friend Gabe, who I would have also loved to pay him. He ran actual camera the day of so that I could, you know, direct really. But also he and I were sort of becoming impromptu gaffers, trying to figure out, you know, watching definitely a lot of YouTube videos to figure out, you know, key lights and diffusion. But I was very fortunate because I work in production. I'm a producer for commercials, mainly web content, but sometimes broadcast commercials as well. And for a long time, I'm freelance now, but for a long time, I worked for an amazing company called Heist. And I was really fortunate that the founder and creative director there, Jordan Debris, sort of hired me out of college when I didn't have any technical experience, and really sort of mentored me and gave me lots of opportunities on set, and with a lot with gear as well. Because while I ended up sort of advancing furthest in the producing route, I still had a lot of on-camera experience. While they're a commercial, mainly corporate commercial company, they also do a lot of doc work. So there were a lot of shoots where I was technically the producer, but also, you know, setting up the lights and helping sort of like second AC and stuff like that. And that company, Heist, Jordan was very generous in letting me use the equipment that they as a company own. And we shot on an Amira Ari. And the great thing about that camera is it's designed for documentary film. So the raw footage is really nice. You can manipulate it in a lot of ways later on in color and like DaVinci Suite. So especially for us, because we didn't have a lighting department, we didn't have a lot of time with the locations before. It was basically get in the day of, get out. That camera was, even though we're not documentary, we're narrative, that camera was particularly well suited to the kind of skeleton crew and gear that we had for those shoot days. And it was really a lot of the lighting a lot of the looks that we achieved for each vignette, because I wanted each one to have sort of a different tone and color thematic to it. So most of that was actually just manipulated in DaVinci, because that Amira raw footage it lends itself so well to the post-production process. Aside from that, it was basically like, me sticking a boom mic up. I would say, were I to do it again, I would certainly hire someone to do sound. I had to struggle quite a bit to get a good sound mix in the post-production process, but it worked out in the end. And for the lights, it was very, very, very basic package, and just using basically a joker and a couple LED panels. But you can achieve a lot, and especially with the Ari Amira, that raw footage just really lends itself to being manipulated in the post-production process. So yeah, I think that would be that's my tech jargon.
No, that was great. No, I'm sure people would appreciate it. And it's funny, Ari Rental gave us a party.
Yes, I was sad to miss that. It was too far in advance, I think.
Yeah.
They're awesome. And when I worked, we work a lot with their gear on set over here on the West Coast, at least for commercials. It's almost always like the Alexa Mini or the Ari.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great. And yeah, no, it does have that, the film overall has that naturalistic, like warrior feel, like, oh, I'm in the bedroom with these characters and getting all their juicy secrets and backstories, it's very palpable, so yeah, no, very well done.
Oh, good. I'm glad. That was the intention.
Yeah. No, I loved it too, because it's like, I think it's deceptively simple, because where everybody like gets those notices of like, hey, do you have a story that could be done in one location? And like, and I think it confounds a lot of people, but you showed, kind of, it balanced the complexity of it with the simplicity of it. So yeah, no, that's what I think really shines about your film. Like, wow, this is really innovative.
Yeah, thank you. It certainly was like I was trying to think of what I could pull off, and what I could also pull off mainly by myself in terms of securing location, moving the gear, figuring out set decoration, and the concept is very simple, but also kind of allowed me at least to really dig in and kind of spend some time with the power of intimacy and trying to, it's kind of hard to have that, to portray that on camera without it feeling melodramatic or just tonally wrong. So it was a definite challenge.
Oh, well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. No, you touched on something that I think is on everybody's minds, and I about like budget and paying people, and I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on, all these strikes that are happening. If you'd like to share any of your thoughts on that, I think our audience would be appreciative too.
Yeah. So my dad also works in TV. He's an editor. And so the strikes have definitely been very close to home in multiple ways. And also just like driving in LA, seeing them, out by Paramount lot or just all around the different studios. I think we're at the precipice of a very interesting diversion in how creative content it kind of is made, especially with what AI is able to generate, not only, writing and chat GBT, but also, I forget the name of the one, but there's one that does, I think it's Dolly, but it also does like animation, so visuals. And also, so, that's a huge new variable to consider, but also a lot of these deals that were first created with streaming companies like Netflix, they were kind of negotiated at a lower rate because it was like, well, we're no one, so you gotta cut us a break, and that's no longer the case. So I think generally, I just think it's great that they're out and negotiating for kind of a revision of their agreement because things have changed so drastically. And I think there is kind of a misconception around like people making the big bucks in Hollywood, where it's like you do get your, name recognition showrunners like Shonda Rhimes or someone who is being bought by Netflix for like millions of dollars, but the rest, the majority of people making up the actual workforce and producing and polishing and actually distributing the content are working under ill-negotiated contracts that have become kind of outdated for the actual business of today, especially with Netflix doing as well as it is. So yeah, I hope I definitely stand in solidarity with them, and I'm hoping that I try to pay attention to when the unions are supposed to negotiate and come to it. I know SAG just joined WGA, but I'm definitely on standby and hoping that a deal is reached that they are happy with. I don't belong to either currently, but I could see a day in which I did, so I definitely support and hope that they get the deal that they're trying to negotiate for.
Yeah, no, it's just so sad. It's such, I know there's no accounting for an inflation. So like one of the details is SAG wants like 11% more, and they're like, no, only 5%. And it's like, how are people supposed to sustain themselves when it's just like, pure greed is, and, I'm king of the castle, so peasants be banished. My rules, you're lucky to be here type vibe that's happening. Like even like if you are singing and you do a little bit of dance, they only want to pay you for 25% of that, not a dancer's like full rate, I believe is the whole thing. So yeah, there's many things. AI, like I watch Ron Perlman's Instagram, and it's something like they want to scan your entire body and use your likeness.
Yeah.
For only $350. You can't even get decent headshots for $350 anymore. I mean, I am in SAG, and yeah, no, it's it's just the level of, you guys have the ball already, just and it's something like, because even though it's like a $12 million budget, if it's on Netflix only, it's not considered theatrical. There's so many details. So I just wanted to put it out there, like for people who think, oh, it's just actors wanting like a bigger trailer or something, or, it's so not about that. It's very like shutting people out of livelihoods for the writers too, not as, as many incentives as they deserve. I mean, it's really sad. And on the tails of a pandemic, which, arts was everybody's therapy, and
Yeah.
it's really.
And also, I mean, definitely on the production side was one of the industries to be hit the hardest. We were very slow to restart being on set because it's incredibly difficult to control, transmission of a virus that we're still learning more and more about how it was transited. So that, people were put out of work for a while for that as well. And even then, like, coming back to work was super staggered, or people, definitely put a damper on production. So even still coming off of that, I think seems like there's a lot that the community has had to endure.
Yeah. So it's like insult to injury. It's really sad. So yeah, I'm, definitely standing in solidarity with SAG and WGA, and just, anything we can do. I almost feel like it's like, time to just say, no, but even go to theaters anymore then. Don't go to theaters, don't watch Netflix, watch every independent film on YouTube you can. So the message is really in their face. Like, like, I don't know. I always just feel there's more we can do. There's always more we can do because, it's just astonishing the level of greed that's out there.
Yeah, it certainly is.
So we'll try to pivot a little bit and not going back
no,
to
not at all.
your movie a bit. I love the tapeworm. If you want to talk about that little scene.
Yeah. That's definitely the script that I have the most affection towards. It ended up having a lot of I had to edit it down a lot because, it was interesting. I was trying to kind of explore the dynamic of new marriage and the kind of disconnect with intimacy once you're tired and struggling and have a new kid, and there's sort of a detachment from your partner. And I just loved the idea of this, new young mom, also wife, kind of as a last, not knowing her husband well enough to know that he's going to tune her out unless it's something kind of outrageous and bizarre and gross. So I think I try to have that particular piece sort of falsely portray her at first as this kind of like mundane person, kind of getting sucked into the monotony of like everyday life, but then have it pivot about halfway through when she sort of embarks on this very in detail, gross tale of the tapeworm. And I think it really plays on the human curiosity and kind of morbid fascination with things that are sort of gross and weird. We don't think about very often. But I was really happy with how it turned out. And I think the actors had a lot of fun with it while we were shooting, because it is just so absurd. But you could see, I think there was a very genuine engagement with the subject material because it is just so bizarre. And I think I first got the idea, I think, from a real conversation I had with my mom, where she had a friend that happened to her. She had like a raw food diet and got a tapeworm. And from there, I just kind of blew it up. I did look it up. You can get tapeworms that long. But I blew it out of proportion, used a bit of hyperbole and exaggeration to fully get that kind of chemistry and engagement between the two characters of there's something they're excited to talk to about each other again. And it's kind of funny and weird that it's a tapeworm, but it's a break from all the parenting and the new adjustment that is forcing them to go through.
Yeah. No, again, just really, really well done. I want to hear what you have going on next. I'm sure you're very busy and have lots of ideas going on. So if you just want to share what you're working on.
Yeah. I have a lot of scripts that I've written. So some of it is just trying to figure out what would be easiest to fund as a short film, while also figuring out, are any of these screenplays. I don't know why it hadn't occurred to me, but I only just thought about, I should be submitting just the screenplay to festival competitions surrounding that. Sometimes they come with funding a little bit as well, which would be really nice. So like I said, I think it was a huge learning curve going through this first festival submission with Bedheads, because I just didn't know, there was so much I didn't know about how things worked. And I don't know why it didn't occur to me to look up specifically screenplay competitions. But so that's definitely something I'm looking into. There's one short film that I think I could probably, I'm starting to try and source people for that, just to make in the meantime, because I think it's important to keep practicing, as it were. And I'm also writing a lot. I've actually polishing a novel that I've written right now that I'm trying to send out to publishers, which is, again, sort of, as I mentioned before, it's that sort of artistic lifestyle of having a bunch of irons in the fire, or like pots on the stove boiling, and you're kind of waiting for one to get hot enough, and then you just run with that. So yeah, I'm hoping that I think the most important part for me is just always having something to work on in the meantime, always advancing my pieces so that I can really just hit the ground running when something does sort of take off.
Align, yes. Yeah. Okay, I want to thank you so much for your time, and again, wonderful accomplishment with Bedheads, and yeah, thank you so much for coming out, and thank you so much for your time today. And
yeah, thank you so much for organizing everything. Yeah.
Thank you. My pleasure and honor. Yeah, no, it was a wonderful experience for me too. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So